Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
And welcome to everyone who is joining us on the internet as well. Well, today we'll go right into questions. So, whoever has a question, if you'll raise your hand. Oh, well, I guess we can go home. In the back there. Yes.
Back to my spot. Hi, Paul. Hi, Raj. It seems like I've had a lot of questions over the last few times I've been here, and keep raising my hand and never got called on, and then the questions would just sort of go away. So this time I've got all these questions, but I guess the underlying that is a sense that if I were to be in center, practice center, a lot of the questions I have now wouldn't be questions. So I guess what would be helpful for me to hear from your perspective. Recently, I get what feels like guidance, intuition, and I follow that. And then it starts to feel like, well, there's this questioning of, was that really intuition, or was that the ego trying to keep me off balance, keep me out of center? So I guess I'd like to know from your perspective how much of what I'm hearing when it feels like intuition is actually intuition, guidance.
Almost all of the time.
Almost all the time. So when, for instance, if I get inspired to write a proposal to give to somebody, to do more classes or whatever it is, what I do for work, and it feels right at the time, and it feels like everything's working, and I do the proposal, I submit the proposal, and then nothing happens. And then nothing happens. So then I start thinking, well, what am I doing?
Aha. You think that the doing is for the purpose of causing an effect.
Right.
Wrong. What you are doing is expressing your integrity. What you are doing is, well, let's say, for lack of better words, being consistent with the Father's will when you are responding or acting on the basis of your intuition. You don't know what effect that's going to have, except you may know that it will fulfill the purpose God had for the intuition being provided you. Sometimes others need to hear the expression of integrity over and over before it registers with them. And you're here, all of you are here at the bottom line to express the integrity of being, because it is in the repetitive expression of it that the opportunity is provided often enough for it to register with others and thereby cause a sudden shift of perception in them. Now, when you are being on a new basis in the world, I mean by that when you're not acting on the basis of principles you were taught, when you're not acting on the basis of your best judgments gathered from your past experience, but you are being in the world on the basis of inspiration, intuition, guidance. You are being in the world in a new way, and that is what helps to break Earth's stupid rest, or Earth's rest in stupidity or ignorance, or in the past. So you are all extremely valuable in terms of being agents for change. The problem is that when you are being out from the impulse of inspiration, nothing you will do will be for the purpose of control. But since you're all coming out of a lifelong habit of control, the tendency is to think that this new way of being is a new way of being in control, when it's not. The old way is a way of being in control so as to secure your safety, or to secure your well-being, or to secure your income, or whatever. So the old way is a way of self-protection. And I promise you, the impulse of divinity that inspires you because the Father has placed it in you will never be to secure your safety or to protect you. The interesting thing you all will find or have found out is that when the inspiration occurs, you are not feeling vulnerable. You feel an already existing safety, which afterwards your ego looks back on and says, that's ridiculous. That won't work. It tries to suck you back into being intelligent enough to reestablish acts of self-protection. I could look at Paul and say, wow, I have been working with him for 21 years, and he's not awake. Maybe I better rethink what I'm doing here. Or likewise, Paul could look at those who have been listening to me through him for 20 years and say, wow, they're not hearing him. Maybe I should find something else to do that's more productive. But you see, that's not what it's about. What it's about is all of you, Paul included, learning that it's your function to be coming from a place of excellence in you that's always been there. And to come from there because that's your function. And when you're in line with your function, the best way I can put it is that you set the chips up to fall in exquisite and beautiful order. The saying is, let the chips fall where they may. Yes. And where they may fall will be exquisitely beautiful when you're not trying to arrange them on the way down. It's all about learning to come from your integrity. A God-instilled integrity, not a personally earned integrity. An integrity that was there before you tried to do anything to create your own integrity in the world or in the minds of others. I know, and I've said it before, if I would give you a practice, or if I would give you a principle to live by so that you could wake up, you would glom onto it. What causes the delay in your embracing it is the fact that it doesn't promise results. It isn't goal-oriented. Because at the bottom line, you don't have to establish anything in place of the absence of anything. And it means that you must become extremely honest with yourselves, extremely in touch with yourselves. It requires you to be willing to abandon playing games with yourself and each other. And it requires change. It requires you to be willing to be in a new way that doesn't secure the old way further. And that feels risky, because what you all really want is security, you think. Well, butterflies in a butterfly collection are well secured, aren't they? No possibility of movement. No experience of life to express. So let's be a little bit reluctant to think that security is your answer. Freedom is your answer. And just like the butterflies that can find their way all the way to Mexico, even though they've never been there before, you have in you a homing beacon. You have in you an ability to recognize what being on the beam means. And I am constantly inviting you to feel into yourselves for it, so that you might get the impulse for being in the world from there. And do it whether there are, quote, results, unquote, or not. I told my disciples to cast their net on the right side. I didn't mean the right side of the boat. You want to cast your net, your attention, your willingness to embrace, your willingness to let in. You want to be willing to cast it where the fish are, where there's something to fill the net. And the place that is full is in the middle of you. But it's a place you can't get to when you're insisting upon being in charge, being in control. So it's sort of a sticky wicket, isn't it? You're trying to be in control. It isn't working well. You're frightened. And so you think, okay, I'll be willing to reach out into the unknown. I'll be willing to reach out to God so that this can be resolved and I can feel safe. And what you think that means is that you will be provided with techniques to regain control. And that isn't what's going to happen. What will happen is that if you genuinely make that extension toward the Father, toward the source of your being, it will move you into that space where you're not feeling vulnerable, even though nothing has changed yet. And you will feel inspired to be or act in a certain way. And what you have to pay attention to is the feeling of that experience so that you can make the choice to stay there instead of coming back out into the 3D world, so to speak, and try to protect yourself.
Right. Yeah. And that's been the rub right there is having these experiences of being in the moment, in the flow, truth moving through me, as it were. And there are times during the day where I give myself permission to do that, to be that. And then suddenly I'm like, bumbling me again. And it's like,
Paul is so glad to know he's not the only bumbling oaf.
It's like, if I really believe, and this is maybe a lie to myself, I like to believe that I want to keep choosing for that center. But then I have to ask, well, is my practice moving me away from center? What am I really practicing? What am I really choosing? I like to believe I'm choosing for center, for guidance. So, but I feel like I feel that when it's happening, and then all of a sudden there's this disconnect. But I don't seem to be able to be aware of when that happens or what causes that.
It's such a habit that it kicks in and feels perfectly normal, so it doesn't register with you that you've shifted. But then you begin to feel discomfort, and that's your signal.
Okay.
I will tell you this, when you're out of center, it will gradually become increasingly more uncomfortable. It's as though something is changing. And where you used to be able to be comfortable when you weren't centered, now it becomes more impossible to be comfortable. This is a sign of returning sanity with a capital S. The only thing is that because you're more uncomfortable, even though things aren't worse than they were 2 years ago when you were more comfortable, the tendency is to feel like, oh, guidance isn't helping at all.
Right.
And I really must attend to the urgency of the crisis I'm experiencing, rather than join with the Father again to find that place in you where your divine excellence is, and where you are to be from is. If you know that the unpleasantness you experience when you're not centered is nothing but a sign that you need to choose once again for your center, you will go back to your center more quickly. What I want all of you to understand is that although coming from your center seems not to be natural to you, it is what is utterly normal. It is what being divinely is all about. And it always has been. The very nature of your being, to be from there. The only reason it seems unnatural is because you have adopted this habit of being uncentered and getting a thrill out of overcoming the threats that you are experiencing, not because there are really threats, but because the sense of threat always accompanies being uncentered, you see?
So it's almost like needing another fix so you get off center to get that excitement again.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. The human condition is an incredible amusement park of fear. And you know what? Because each one of you is the Christ, is the specific, perfect expression of God, no matter how frightening the amusement park is, you're always safe. And so the thrill is a safe thrill, just as at Disneyland. Even though you create, you might say, scarier and scarier rides. So you're hooked on fear. You're hooked on the thrill of coming as close as you can to the ultimate negativity. But it's a preoccupation that blinds you to what life is all about. It blinds you to the wholeness of your being. It blinds you to the kingdom of heaven that you've turned into an amusement park in your mind. And at the bottom line, it blinds you to peace and joy and a real experience of who and what you are. You all know you're missing the point in life. That's why you're grasping for something, whether it's more money or more security or a better partner or more knowledge. So, does that answer your question?
Yeah, yeah, it does. The paradox is when I'm experiencing the center, I know what you say, I feel it, I experience it. And so it seems obvious. When I'm not experiencing, when I'm not in center, the concept of what you're saying is still there, but I don't experience that.
Exactly.
So since it's not my experience to try and like have compassion for somebody, for instance, doesn't feel, I don't feel that compassion coming from me because I'm not in center.
Yes.
So, well,
That's pretty black and white, isn't it?
Sure it is. Sure.
How much more black and white does it have to get in order for you to make a choice?
Well, that's a good question. All right, maybe, okay, maybe you can help. Is there, from your perspective, is there something I keep tripping over that is, that's obvious to you that wouldn't be obvious to me at the time? Or would that even make a difference? Because if it isn't that one thing, would it be another thing? I don't know.
What happened the first time you ever wore something other than pants?
What do you mean, what happened?
How did people respond? What was you began to dress in a new way that is not typical?
Right. Responses were varying. A lot of people were very uncomfortable. I wasn't totally comfortable with it. It's just something I felt inspired to do. And as I became more comfortable, more people became more comfortable. And I got to a point where I don't even notice it anymore.
Exactly. At the point where change occurred, adjustment had to occur in you and in others.
Mm.
And you had to endure the adjustment.
Mm-hmm.
So once you realize that staying at center is your choice, realize that there is going to be adjustment that will occur.
Okay.
For a while you'll still feel inclined to reach for the pair of pants.
Sure.
The garment is called a what?
Lots of names. I like lava lava, but
yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Now it doesn't occupy your awareness
At all.
And other people still have reactions, that
Sure.
new people who meet you, and their reaction means nothing to you.
Right.
Right. So you have a new habit.
Mm-hmm.
Be willing to endure the period of adjustment where everyone else is having to become comfortable with you being in a new way, and where you have to become comfortable with your being in a new way until it is just the way you are, and you don't even think about it anymore. So what you're missing here is that you're called to live through the adjustment.
Okay, thank you. That helps.
And then persist in the new way of being.
Great.
Even when you've made the adjustment and you thought, this is just me, some situation or some individual enters the picture, and you are amazed to find that that there's still something in you that can still care or be concerned about someone else's response.
Sure, I still put on the pants once in a while, sure.